Loud House is one of the most popular cartoons around, but for some reason the show likes to toe the line of what's appropriate and what's not. Stay tuned to find out why Lincoln sharing a room with one of his sisters had us super weirded out. Are you new around here? Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to The Things for more great videos like this. Now on to 10 times the Loud House wasn't meant for kids. Name calling. Let's start this list off with a moment from season 1 from the episode Intense Debate. In the episode, all of the Loud children are annoyed about their upcoming family vacation. Lincoln suggests that they just ask their parents if they can go somewhere different. The parents actually agree, but the choice of where to go then falls in Lincoln's hands. Unfortunately, his sisters are split on where they want to go. Half want to go to one place and half to the other. In the moment where his sisters are harassing him to make a decision, Lincoln decides that he actually needs more time to decide. This is where the inappropriate moment comes. At this news, Lola reaches out to hurt her brother and says,
"Why, you lousy little..."
but is cut off. Now let's think about that for a second. What was Lola about to say? Whatever it was, it couldn't have been appropriate for kids. This isn't the first time this show has done something like that. In fact, the producers of the show love to input little instances where the characters seem like they are going to say something inappropriate and then pull back at the last second. Dentist problems. In the episode, A Novel Idea, it is Bring Your Daughter to Work Day at the Loud Kids' dad office. Unfortunately, Lincoln is the only boy, so he is the only one left out of the day. Feeling bad about it, his mom brings him to work at her dentist's office. The problem is that the dentist's office isn't exactly the most fun place in the world. Lincoln is immediately bored at the office, and as soon as his mom leaves him alone, he tries to find a way to make the best of the situation. As we all know, Lincoln is obsessed with space, so naturally he plays space games while his mom is in the other room. While pretending to be an astronaut, he says,
"I can see Uranus from here, and boy is it gassy."
Now, seeing the planet Uranus from space is no big deal, but his sentence is definitely double-sided, especially when he says that it's quite gassy. We don't need to describe to you what he is inferring, do we? What made the writers think that that was an appropriate joke to make? Luckily for them, most kids probably won't even catch on. But if an adult happens to be watching the show with them, then they will definitely get the joke. Bathroom voyeur. When you are a child, you share a lot with your siblings, especially if your siblings are the same sex as you. You'll probably end up sharing everything from clothes to food. Well, the Loud House is pretty much overrun with children, so naturally, they have to share a few things. The bathroom is one of those things that the children have to share. If you know the show, then you know that most of the kids are girls. In fact, only one of them is a boy. So he probably feels like he needs a little extra privacy than his sisters. Unfortunately for him, in Season 2's episode, A Lock and Loud, his sister Lisa admits that she has set up cameras in the bathroom.
Because of the cameras I installed last year.
Now we get that she likes to do experiments because she is a certifiable genius, but come on, that's taking it way too far. If this had been an adult show, people probably would have called it out for being inappropriate. But because it's a cartoon, somehow it was just able to slide by unnoticed. We are just wondering what Lisa actually did with all that footage, because we are sure that it's definitely not suitable for anyone to see. Harmful chemicals. Let's take it back to the Intense Debate episode for a minute. There was more than one thing wrong with that episode. As we mentioned before, Lisa is super smart. She may actually be a genius. So in the episode, she gives Lincoln a gift. He thinks it's cream to be rubbed on his face, but it's actually a super harmful chemical. Lincoln rubs it all over his face without knowing what it actually is. Of course, it causes him to turn extremely red. In real life, if someone had rubbed that chemical on their face, there would have been much harsher consequences. The stuff could cause serious burns or worse. If children were watching this episode, they may think that giving your sibling harmful chemicals was a fun way to get back at them. That could not be further from the truth. Chemicals are nothing to play around with. This episode was definitely not created with kids in mind. If it was, we doubt that Lisa would have tricked her brother into harming himself. And what's worse is that Lisa is so smart that she should know how horrible that chemical was, which means that she tried to hurt him on purpose. The whole thing just wasn't nice. Subtle language. Cartoons are supposed to be things that you can watch with your children without worry. And if you're a kid, you are supposed to be able to watch cartoons without parental controls. The Loud House is a show that toes the line. Sometimes the show is great and clean and suitable for people of all ages to watch, and then other times the show is anything but. The show gets in a lot of hot water because of their outright inappropriate jokes. What you may not have noticed, though, is that there are a lot of times in the series where the inappropriate things in the show aren't so obvious obvious. For instance, in the episode Making the Case, the camera zooms in on the trophy case in the family room. If you look at Lynn's portion of the case, there is a certificate that reads, Kick A+. What do you think that certificate really means? Right? We are thinking that too. The moment goes by really quickly, and the camera doesn't really focus on the trophy case for too long. So it would make sense if you missed the moment altogether. We seriously wonder what the purpose of putting all those inappropriate, subtle things in the episode is. Space Invader. The loud kids are not ones to hold their tongues. Even though there are a lot of kids in the house, they each find ways to speak their minds. The episode Space Invader is no different. In the episode, Lincoln is super happy about the fact that he doesn't have to share a bedroom. In fact, he is the only one in the entire house who doesn't. But this particular night, as he is going to bed, he hears Lynn and Lucy having a fight. Lynn decides that she can't deal with her sister anymore and asks Lincoln if she can sleep in his room. He allows her to, but then things go south. And this is where the speaking their minds thing that we mentioned earlier comes into play. Lynn and Lincoln soon realize that they get on each other's nerves as well. At one point, Lynn throws one of Lincoln's stuffed animals on the ground. He then picks it up and starts baby talking to it. When Lynn sees this, she says,
You know, I'm noticing a complete lack of balls in this room.
That comment is even awkward for Lincoln, and he pauses and just stares at her. She does eventually bring actual balls into the room, but the whole thing was just weird and not suitable for kids. Hidden cursing. Humor is different for everyone. What you find funny, someone else might find completely snooze city, and vice versa. It's the creators of the show's jobs to find things that the majority of people find funny or amusing and put it in the show. Apparently, the creators of The Loud House think that most people find inappropriate jokes and hidden curse words hilarious. If they didn't, then the creators wouldn't put these jokes in so many of the episodes, would they? In the Butterfly Effect episode, there is a prime example of a hidden curse word. In the episode, Luna tells her brother,
Jackie, bro, I uploaded a song I wrote about our family going down the highway to hello!
She is then distracted by getting more hits on her song, so she doesn't complete the curse word. You don't have to be a genius to see where she was going with that sentence, do you? Especially not since that song is already a legitimate popular song in real life. So the creators of the show definitely knew what they were doing when they put that line in there. We aren't really sure what the benefit is of hiding curse words in the show, but someone must really love it since it keeps happening. Butt jokes. Earlier, we already mentioned a joke on this show about Uranus. But apparently the show really loves to make jokes without puns. So here we are again with another Uranus joke. In the episode Back in Black, Lincoln is working on a science project. When answering the door while working on the project, he asks Rusty,
Did you bring Uranus?
meaning the planet. Instead of simply replying yes or no, Rusty says,
Never leave home without it.
which leads us to think that the Uranus that he was referring to is not actually in the solar system. Listen, we get it, okay? The show has a kid who loves the solar system, so the Uranus jokes are pretty easy to make. But seriously, how long can they use the same inappropriate joke before someone says something? The arguments for most jokes that are kind of mature is that kids won't understand them anyway. But if you use the same joke again and again, eventually kids are going to start to catch on. We laughed the first time we heard the joke, and maybe even chuckled the second and third time. But come on. Inappropriate love. We all know that Lincoln's friend Clyde has a crush on Lori. That in and of itself is not all that weird. We all had a crush on our older siblings' friends, didn't we? They all seem so cool and grown up. But in the case of this show, the age difference between Clyde and Lori does make things a little uncomfortable sometimes, especially when Clyde makes remarks about Lori. For instance, in the episode A Tale of Two Tables, Lincoln needs to prepare to eat dinner with grown-ups. And who better to help him do this than his good pal, Clyde? In order to help them train, they make cardboard cutouts of their people, and Lincoln has a practice run eating with adults. Whenever Lincoln does something wrong, Clyde blows a horn. At one point, Lincoln takes the bread off of cardboard Lori's plate. Clyde gets mad at him and then turns to Lori and says,
Don't worry, beautiful. I'll share my buns with you.
If this comment was innocent, he would just have been talking about bread buns. But since Lincoln honks his horn after Clyde says the comment, we all know that that remark was not innocent at all. New girl in town. In order for a show to appeal to people, it has to cover things that real people go through. Dating is definitely one of those things. But when the show is a cartoon, it has to be really careful about the way it deals with dating on the show. The show can't be too explicit. But then, at the same time, it should give people enough hints of romance. In Season 3's White Hair, a new girl moves to town. Lincoln is instantly attracted to her and wants to get to know her. The episode is innocent enough except for a few jokes that were a little out there. When Clyde asks Lincoln if he needs some help talking to the girl, Lincoln responds,
Thanks, but there are some things a man must do alone.
Clyde then says,
I said the same thing to my dad the first time I used a public restroom.
that line was weird enough, but it doesn't stop there. Later, Danny and Warren are talking, and Danny is lovingly talking about Betty. When Warren hears this, he gets a funny look in his eyes, and Danny asks,
Are you picturing her hopping through the woods in slow-mo again?
doesn't that seem oddly sexual to picture someone you like in slow-mo? The whole episode has lots of innuendos that we aren't even dirty enough to get into. And that's it for 10 times a Loud House wasn't meant for kids. Were you surprised by anything on this list? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.